Welcome to another episode of Whitetail Rendezvous with your host, Bruce Hutchin, episode number 097.
Welcome to Whitetail Rendezvous Podcast, where it is all about whitetail deer hunting tips, techniques, and the stories so you can become a more successful whitetail deer hunter. And now your host, Bruce Hutchin.
Good friend and fellow bunkhouse crew member, Peter Rogers, comes from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. He's a member of the bunkhouse crew up in Laval, Wisconsin. 37 years old, and for 23 years has been hunting with a rifle. But 3 years ago, he took up bow hunting along the Baraboo River. He took his first buck just 2 years ago. He's a certified massage therapist, renowned Milwaukee musician, avid bike builder, and motorcyclist, and all around a fantastic friend who just happens to be the son of Dick Rogers, who introduced me to hunting in 1966.
Welcome to another episode of Whitetail Rendezvous. This is Bruce Hutchin, your host, and I'm really happy to have Peter Rogers with me. Peter Rogers is the son of Dick Rogers, and if you listen to my episode 000, you find out that Dick Rogers was instrumental in bringing me to the Baraboo River Valley and started me off on a career in 1966 of hunting all over North America. So, Peter, welcome to the show.
How's it going, Bruce?
It's going really well. Peter, let's share where the hunting tradition came for you, and let's just start there.
Hunting has always really been intriguing for me because of my dad and my family. He grew up in the Baraboo River Valley in Union Center, Wisconsin, where on the farm that you first hunted. And since I was knee-high to a grasshopper, he's been taking me up hunting, whether I was going on the hunts, whether I was riding in the car while he was taking people out for drives, or just sitting around listening to the old boys talk about that one that got away. So the love affair started when I was extremely young, but I never really became passionate about it until I was in my 30s. And at 36 now, I'm really starting to get down to the heart of what it is to be a hunter.
Well, let's talk about what does it mean to you, Peter, to be a hunter?
Well, I don't look at it the same way that a lot of people do. I'm not extremely into how big a deer is, or of course, as any hunter would like to bag the big one and be the have the biggest buck in camp. I really just enjoy being out there in the wildlife and experiencing that that passion that my dad has. And my biggest aspiration is really just to understand, what big bucks do, because I watch, baskets run around all day when I bow hunt, and I rarely see, that unicorn, if you want to call it. So, in general, my whole outlook on hunting is really just to get out there, to be in nature, to make good, accurate kills. Wounding a deer is a great fear of mine. It's never happened before, which I feel very fortunate. But I really just want to get to the heart of what deer hunting is all about, and I feel like I'm almost there.
That's interesting. You said the heart of hunting. Define that for Peter Rogers.
For me, it's really understanding the deer that you're hunting. Right now, I'm into using my climber, especially for bow hunting, and even after opening weekend of gun season, I find myself wanting to use my bow or my gun because it's a more intimate thing. I really feel like the heart of hunting is being right there and actually catching the animal in its close natural environment, as opposed to taking a 200-yard shot. When it comes to whitetails, of course.
Let's talk about the Bunkhouse Crew, as I've named the people and the place at Mill Creek. And so share with our listeners what the Bunkhouse Crew is all about and why it's fun.
Well, the bunkhouse all started. My dad had a little cabin on a river a few years back, and we never were able to hunt there. It was more for boating, having a good time, and we'd always come up and either stayed on the farm that we actually hunted, or stayed in a hotel nearby. And when my dad had the opportunity to get out of that cabin, he was quick to try to find a place where we could call home base, where we could park our snowmobiles and four-wheelers and go shoot trap. And luckily, my cousin Mike had a bunkhouse, if you will, for one of his crews. And you especially, went through with him and cleaned it up. It's just a small 2-bedroom, 4 bunks in each room, a shitter and a shower, and kind of made it our own. So since we started going up there, it's about a mile away from where we hunt. It's become a great place to share stories. There's a potbelly stove in the main area, and then a nice dinner table in the living area, where we can just hang out and talk about the day, where we're going to hunt, what we're going to do, what we've learned through reading or what we've heard from other people, and try to make each experience that much better every year. So now that we're in our 3rd year here, it's starting to all come together, and we're all getting our good spots and where we're gonna hunt and what we're gonna do the next day.
Tell the listeners a little about your buddy Jason, because he's part of the Bunkhouse Crew. So introduce Jason to our listeners.
Jason is a very good friend of mine. We became friends through a good friend of mine, basically because I needed help fixing one of my motorcycles. And he instead of just doing it for me, he showed me hands-on what I needed to do, and I became very intrigued with that. And through that, we started talking about deer hunting, and he spends most of his time quite a bit north of where we hunt, in Keatonwell, where he bagged most of his bucks. And since getting into his 30s with marriage and stuff, he kind of lost his hunting crew, and I said, why don't you come up with us? And that was the first year of the bunkhouse. And as far as I know, he started bow hunting extremely early in life, and he had an uncle that basically walked him through every aspect of it. He was that guy that never wore camo, never scented himself, nothing. He had nothing but the bottom part of a climber and his bare hands, and he would inch himself up a tree, get as high as he needed to be, right on that rub line, and he'd always come home with a really nice buck. So, of course, as much competition as that could be, there's also something to learn from somebody like that. And as far as him being my guru with motorcycles, he's also taught me a lot about hunting and just seeing his passion for it. I mean, he does he cleans and quarters all his animals. He freezer packages them. He does all that on his own. He loves, every aspect of it, from preparing for the hunt all the way down to zipping that last freezer bag, with big tenderloin in it.
How heavy was that buck that Jason shot last year? And tell the folks a little bit about that buck. it certainly was unique.
Yeah. Or just this past year, he shot probably the biggest buck I've ever seen. As far as the horns go, it wasn't very big. It literally looked like a crab claw on one side and a fork on the other. But the deer was, they say, close to 11 years old and well over 200 pounds. He honestly had no clue how big it was when he shot it. He just saw this giant body rubbing on a tree and took his shot, and he thought that he had got the biggest buck of his life as far as rack size goes. And he walked up to it and saw this crazy crab claw and finally realized that he had a really unique buck. As disappointed as he was with not having the giant rack on it, I mean, this was an impressive animal. The meat in it, he cut your buck up at the same time he cut his, and just the back straps alone were like 3 times the size of the buck that you had shot. So that just goes to show the sheer size of this animal. And I'm actually out at his house right now staring at the head hanging on the side of his barn. So he's still pretty proud of it.
And listeners, Jason and I tried to drag it up just a small hill, not even a big hill, to get it to the truck to get it out of the woods. And we couldn't do it. We had to take ropes and drag it up the hill, and then it took a bunch of us just to get it set up and drag it out to where the trailer was. And it's one of the largest bucks, body bucks I've ever seen. And Jason's just one heck of a guy, and I'm sure glad I'm a buck brother with him. We shot our bucks the same day, and so we went around calling ourselves Buck Brothers, but he's part of the Bunkhouse Crew, and that's what hunting to me is about. Since 1966, I've been going with Dick and hunting the family farm and other farms in the area, and it's special. It's a special time, and I hope everybody understands it's not just the kill, it's the whole journey and the relationships. And here's Peter, 36 years old, and he has fond memories of hanging out with his dad and waiting for us to clear the woods after a deer drive. Peter, let's share with the listeners about your first archery kill.
Well, before we get to that, I just want to add that you had to go help Jason pull that monster out, and after that there was a mysterious giant dent in the bumper of my dad's truck. We don't know where it came from, but
I know where it came from.
I just have to say, I mean, your trailer turning skills might not be, there were no witnesses. Nobody has said who it was, but I can only imagine that in that giant buck fiasco, that my dad's freshly painted bumper, which he had dinged before, somehow became re-dinged only months later. But on top of that, on a serious note, I also want to mention that I knew that you had both got your bucks, and I was just on the other side of the property from where yours was, and I seriously regret, after seeing pictures and stuff, I figured that I would stay out there since you guys were, driving 4-wheelers in the woods, and, my cousin Jim came up to check you out, and I figured with all that movement, maybe something would get pushed my way. Instead of, driving up and walking out there and congratulating you, on the spot, I kind of waited, and I kind of wished that I was there. In the bunkhouse, we have a bulletin board with all our kills and family coming to visit. It's a big pole barn, so we have a huge area where we can have people come in. We got the deer hanging out in the shed, and I do kind of regret, and I feel like that's kind of part of the hunt too, is when somebody gets something going out there, especially for me, you know, there's guys that'll stay out there all day, such as yourself. If you don't get anything, you pack a lunch, you stay out there. But like if my dad gets something, I definitely want to be there to, you know, help him gut it and, you know, help him load it and whatever. And I really feel like I missed out, you know, staying in my stand because I didn't see a damn thing the whole time you guys were loading up. So, with that being said, you know, that's another part of like what I feel like the heart of the hunt is really sharing those moments with the people that you hunt with. Because it is a really exhilarating experience. You know, you get that adrenaline rush and you want to get pictures and whatever. And, I really feel like I missed out, but who knows? You never know. Like you could, you know, turn around to take a pee and the biggest buck you ever saw could be right in front of you, or you could sit in the woods all day and never see, you know, the biggest one you could have seen walk right behind you. So there's an unknown, and I feel like, the camaraderie is almost more important to me than sitting out there a little extra longer. But as far as, my first,
Peter, hold on a second. I've got to share with the listeners. So the day that Jason and I both killed our bucks, and I think it was a Sunday or Monday morning. It doesn't matter. I woke up. Was it Sunday morning? Peter and I woke up 4 o'clock, 4:30. I look out. It's sort of raining, snowing, foggy. It was ugly. And so I said, I don't think so, Peter. And Peter's up, ready to go. He says, Hutch, come on, just go to the point stand. And, you know, you got to do it.
I gave you my spot. I failed to mention that's where I go in the morning. But, you know, that's the nice guy I am.
Yeah. And so because of Peter, one of the nicest bucks that I've seen on the farm, not the biggest, but, you know, a very nice buck. And I was in the stand and watching another buck go up. I couldn't get a shot at him. And very nice buck, 10-pointer and nice width and heavy mass. And couldn't get a shot. Then all of a sudden, from my left, I hear a commotion, and I know it's a buck coming, and all I could do is turn my scope back from 8-power to 2-power and swing on him just like a pheasant. And as they say, the rest is history. But Peter, thank you, 1, for getting me up, 2, for giving me your stand.
No problem. I didn't want to sit there anyway. I wish that I had, but you know, it's one of those things. I when I start explaining my first you know, bow buck experience, you'll understand that I almost, you know, would rather the people that I hunt with get the nice one. You know, you come all the way from Colorado, and it's a big deal for you. You took a lot of time this year. And I wanted everyone to have the best spot. I mean, there's been times where I've actually sat on the ground so that Jason or you could get a better spot, especially because I spend all, you know, from August until gun hunting, sitting out there, and I know where the deer are running. I know where I see, you know, a nice buck. As long as we don't get pushed out by other people, you know, I always feel like I want to set my, you know, the people that I care about in the good spots, because I feel like, you know, I'm only 36. You know, you're on the precipice of life here, Bruce. So I thought I'd give you.
Thank you.
I'm just kidding. You know, like I said, I just, you know, it's good to, you know, give up your spot or whatever. I'm not a selfish hunter at all. I really just enjoy, you know, spending the time with people. Which
let's get on your buck. Let's get on your buck. Let's go.
So I had seen my buck the day before. Jason and I were hunting back behind my cousin's house, which, if you haven't described it, the area we hunt is my uncle's farm and my cousin's farm, and they create a huge L of over 800 acres of not only pasture and farming land, but a mass amount of woods. And Jason had set up a stand, which Bruce, is the concussion stand, the year before. And it's so thick in there that there's always big bucks in there. And we've driven some out before, so I sat on the edge of the field, on the west end of the field, and he went up in the woods and into his stand. Just before dark, the night before I got this guy, I saw him walking along the edge of the field underneath a walnut tree. He wasn't spooked at all. He walked from the direction that Jason was sitting, so he either snuck past him or he was between where Jason was and where I saw him, and he had just gotten up to start his evening feed. So the next day, we did some sighting in for our gun rifles and had a few libations, a couple of cold ones, and this was about noon, and we cut off at about 3, and I went out just a little after that by myself. I was the only one hunting that area that day, and I decided to take my climber into where I had seen him the night before. So I climbed a tree right next to the walnut tree and got myself all snugged in. It was one of those fall days that was picturesque. I'm facing west. I'm facing the stand that I was sitting in the night before, and there's a small field between. And I start to doze off a little bit, as you tend to do when that hot sun hits you and you're still kind of wearing your warm clothes. And I wake up, wake myself up, because when you're in a climber, you're pretty much on edge. And there's a doe standing right in the middle of the field, and she was halfway between me and this other stand, probably 100 yards between me and the doe, and she started walking away from me. And at this point, I was already looking for this buck, so I stayed still. I didn't move, and she was walking away from me, and then she caught my scent, not the scent of myself, but actually I put some stuff on the bottom of my boots, and she started following my actual footprints. I could see in a freshly tilled field. It was a cornfield, so there was still corn in there that the deer were feeding on, but I could see her walking right over my footprints right towards me. And not more than a minute after she started walking towards me, she was probably 50 yards away, I hear to my left big hoof hit, and I knew exactly what it was. And he came right to the edge of the field, right next to the tree I was in, probably 20 yards to my left, and I didn't move. My heart was beating out of my chest. I wanted to look so bad, but I could tell he was standing on the edge, just looking like, see what's going on. And the doe finally noticed him, and she kind of took off a little bit. She moved to her left, which would have been to my right, and the buck chased her down. And she stopped right at the edge of the woods, and he stood in the middle of the field for a good minute, but I still didn't move. I knew if I moved 1 inch, he would have been gone. So she took off into the woods to my right, and he took off after her. And as he started running, I grabbed my bow. I don't even remember putting my release on or anything, and he stopped, and right behind the tree. So all I could see was his ass end, and he took 2 steps forward. I released. He ran about 15 yards and dropped right there. I couldn't believe it. I'd never, taken aim and shot so fast, and come to find, once I retrieved the buck, how accurate of a shot it was. It went right through his right side and then just above, his heart, and got that ascending aorta, and that's why he died so quickly. So I just texted my dad and my nephew, said I'm going to need a trailer, because at the time I was driving a small sedan. And I went up and checked him out, and it was the same 8-pointer I'd seen the day before. And I couldn't have been happier with such a good, quick, clean kill. And just the way it all happened. I mean, it happened over the course of maybe 5 minutes, from when he first stepped to my left and to when I finally dropped him. And it was a truly amazing kill.
And Peter has lots of pictures, and he was just ecstatic, and it's a joy, especially for an old guy that's on the precipice of life. Oh, we have so much fun, folks. You have no idea, or maybe you do. But anyway, Peter was so excited, and we were excited. His dad was excited, and everybody was excited for him because Peter spends a lot of time figuring it out and doing it right. And, he all his scent lock clothes are in bins, and he's doing everything he can to become a formidable hunter. And to get that deer, with the shot he put on it, is a testament to his desire to be a great hunter.
Yeah, I mean, the weekend before, I passed up on a buck that was the rack was twice that size. We were calling him Mr. Wonderful. He was 60 yards away, and there's no way I was going to take that shot. He was 60 yards away, broadside right in front of me. And where my stand was, he was at the crest of the hill, so it would have been a flat shot, not shooting down. And I just didn't want to take a pot shot at a beautiful animal like that. And I'm still happy I didn't take the shot, and nobody, as far as I know, has gotten him.
He's still there.
Because pretty much we know everyone that hunts that area, so if he was gone, we'd know it.
Mr. Wonderful is still there, and folks, the terrain we hunt, Baraboo River runs on the northern edge down in the valley, and then we hunt the hillsides and the woodlots and the crops and everything up on the ridge. So it's a wonderful place, and I can't tell you I dare say hundreds of deer, but over 40, 50 years, a lot of deer have come off that. And because of everything that's happened, we're seeing bigger and bigger deer. We've never seen a deer as big as Mr. Wonderful in the years I've been going there. So something is going right, and it's the heritage that we're... What?
Or it's going wrong. I have my theory, and I'm pretty much, I think that I'm close to right, is which is why it goes through all the hunting. So just 45 minutes north of us, a coworker of mine has some hunting land, and they've always scored big animals off of there. And this year, while her and her fiance were bow hunting, they saw 2 wolves going through their area. So they started talking to their neighbors, and everyone said, have you seen any deer? And really, they haven't. And I feel like the deer are pushing south towards us, as well as a lot of the smaller predators, like coyote and fox, because if you look for small game up there, like normally you're kicking rabbits and, being annoyed to death by turkeys. And this year, turkey hunting was pretty bad in that area. And I think it's due to those smaller predators being pushed down, by the wolves. At the same time, it's pushing more deer down. Bow hunting from opening weekend until gun hunting, I've never seen so many deer in my life. Even this year when I was turkey hunting, I had a doe walk right up to me. She had no clue what I was until I moved, and she's dead. But it's been pretty crazy, and I have a feeling that if we don't do something about it, the wolves are going to push even further south, and we're going to be out of luck.
And Wisconsin DNR does have a wolf season. They take 200-300 wolves. Northern Wisconsin has been hammered I don't want to use the word decimated because some people will think that's a little alarming, but the deer in Wisconsin are heading south. There's no question about it. And we have to do what we need to do by getting licenses and hunting wolves and taking wolves that are on the farm.
Yeah. So, I mean, they don't allow it in our area. That's the thing. They do allow wolf licensing and hunting, but it's not in our county or the one north of us. So, pretty much there's nothing you can do besides, I don't know, scare tactics, whatever you can do, to get them out of there.
Peter, we're at the time in the show that we're wrapping up, and you get a minute or two just to give a shout-out to your bow manufacturer, other people, Bunkhouse Crew, a big shout-out to your dad. So you got a minute or two. Let's wrap it up.
All right. Well, thanks to you, I'm the proud owner of a PSE Stinger that has never done me wrong. I've never had any issues with it. Barely have to recite it every year, even after being restrung, surprisingly. As well as Jim's Archery in Union Grove, Wisconsin. He makes all my arrows for me, and make sure that my bow is right for every season. And most of all, I'd like to, thank you, my dad, Dick Rogers, and Jason Kesting, who we talked about, for making my hunts most pleasurable.
Well, Peter, I can't wait to the fall. I'm ready to, jump in the truck and head east and hang out at Fishy's and the River Mill and other places that we frequent for good meals and good camaraderie, and especially get back to the bunkhouse and burn some wood, tell some stories, and get up in the morning and go hunt whitetails.
Yeah, I will make sure you're up.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to wrap another episode of the Whitetail Rendezvous. And again, to the Bunkhouse Crew, a big thank you, and I can't wait to this fall. So keep the sun at your back and wind in your face, and be patient out there.
As your host at Whitetail Rendezvous, I want to thank each and every one of you for spending your time with us today. I look forward to sharing with you in the next episode more whitetail hunting tips, techniques, and stories. Until then, keep the sun at your back, the wind in your face, and always be patient.
If you have any tips, comments, or suggestions, or what we can do to improve, because we're here to serve you, let us know. Thanks for listening to Whitetail Rendezvous Podcast at www.whitetailrendezvous.com.